Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity to question the witness. And thank you, Undersecretary, for being with us this morning. Wanted to ask you several questions. Many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are criticizing this budget proposal for only providing a 1.6%. I'm sorry, is there someone else on the line off? Mr. Chairman, if you would
I don't believe
suspend the
so.
time. I'm hearing, okay.
Yeah.
Providing a 1.6% increase for the military, but the Department of Defense is an enormous operation. I think it's important to look deeper than just the top line funding levels. For example, the budget requests a 3.1% increase in military personnel, a 5.2% increase for research and development, and a 2.7% increase for military pay, while decreasing procurement by 5.7%. So my question is to our witness, in your opinion, how should we review the adequacy of the department's request? What do you hope we look at when we determine the overall funding levels for defense?
I know I would speak for both the Secretary and the Deputy Secretary that the most important thing for Congress to assess is what we're proposing, the details, what we're proposing to spend the money on rather than what it
I'm
adds
sorry,
up
the
to.
witness is on mute.
I'm sorry, can you not hear me, Congresswoman?
Ms. Plaskett, are you able to hear? Yeah, we'll have to pause.
Congresswoman, I'd started to answer your question, but I'm concerned you may not be able to hear me.
We ought to pause for just a minute, please. Yeah, the hearing will be in recess until further notice. Ms. Plaskett, can you hear us now in the hearing room?
Yes, I can.
All right. Well, then,
Although I can't
we will
see you.
we will resume the hearing. The hearing's now back in order. And Ms. Plaskett, you can continue your questioning.
Thank you. I believe the witness was responding to my question as to how should members of this committee review the adequacy of the department's request, and how would you hope we would then look to determine the overall funding levels for defense?
Understanding that the Budget Committee has a somewhat different role than the Armed Services and Appropriations Committee, I understand that you would look at the top line as part of your assessment here, and possibly in comparison to the other priorities. I would point out just on that front that we have our discretionary request is basically equal to every other agency's combined. So I feel like we have the resources that we need to do our job. I'm not concerned whether we have a little more or a little less than some other agency, but I understand that's part of the assessment you must make about whether you feel the balance is appropriate. Within our top line is where we really feel like we would like the Congress to focus. As you look at what we're doing, do you think we're on the right path? Do you think we're pursuing the right priorities? If you believe, if you agree with us on the assessment of what the priorities are, such as concern about the global competition with China, do you think that our programs are moving us in that direction? We think we have a good program and a good story on that, but I think that's where the focus should be.
And
Thank
I
you.
would echo that we would hope that we look at that right balance of readiness, modernization, and procurement. Certainly, those are the criteria that we use to measure the difficult choices that we had to make inside this or any budget. So we would hope that the committee would review that we got those parts of it right, that we believe that we need to modernize the force, we need to get after more important capabilities and restore the readiness that we've kind of had issues with that are continuing to improve, but we need to keep that going with personnel as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that readiness and ensuring that our troops are in fact educated and mindful in the same way that you would teach them about the doctrine of communism or socialism or those individuals that we are working against. You would in turn also teach them about those principles and support the American people, such as the Constitution, and such as my colleague does not seem to understand, critical race theory is a legal doctrine, not one that is put forth in schools. And so having sensitive and those troops who understand and are able to adequately support their fellow officers, whether it's in the field, battlefield, or on the ships, or anywhere else, would be something that I'm sure our troops are happy to have. One of the last questions I wanted to ask you was that an issue that I have concern about in my district is housing allowance for members of the active Guard Reserve in the Virgin Islands. As you know, members of the Guard on duty in the 50 states currently receive the basic allowance for housing, but members on duty in the Virgin Islands only receive the overseas housing allowance, which is reimbursable allowance and offers less flexibility for members to find housing options that meet their needs. I understand, however, that Hawaii and Alaska are currently considered to be overseas locations while still receiving the basic allowance for housing. As you may be aware, the Virgin Islands National Guard, members of the Guard, its leadership, our governor, have all requested to extend the basic allowance for housing to Guard members serving in the Virgin Islands, as has my office. Does the Department of Defense plan to take any actions, including under its available statutory authority, to extend this to Guardsmen working in the Virgin Islands? Thank you.
Congresswoman, I'm not familiar with the request, if it's on the table with the department to consider how we treat the so-called OHA in the Virgin Islands compared to how Alaska or Hawaii are treated, but we will certainly get back to you.
I would appreciate that. Thank you very much, Mr.